Part 2, Mazzaroth Calendar Decoded. Welcome back, family. Let's dig into this. All right, we're going to start here. We've got a couple new ones. We'll connect the dots and place the link in the video description. So if you wanted to dig deeper, it's going to be there. First, we're going to start at the Mazzaroth wiki. Um, One of the things that I wanted to point out, if you've been following me for a while, then you know I've decoded um, this zodiac cycle that's from the 6th century Mosaic in the Beth Alpha synagogue in Israel. This They know that this is a copy of an older stela. And that has also, I would have to do an entire study on this and bring that all. I'd have to have all the ammunition to show all of the evidence for this. Um, so we may come back and do that in another series if we're still here, um, because I have a lot of this research connected to this zodiac mosaic here, and also the Dendera zodiac, and two other stelas that I have decoded using this Mazzaroth language here, because this is the Mazzaroth right here on this image here from the synagogue in Israel. And so let's go ahead and read through this first section. Again, I'm going to go ahead and connect the link so that you can come and do the full read yourself. It'll take too long if we have to read through all these wikis, but I'm going to connect the link. So just whatever we don't get um, uncovered, just come in and finish um, reading it for yourself so you have a full understanding of what we're talking about. So, Mazzaroth is a biblical Hebrew word found in the book of Job. You can read that for yourself, Job 38:32. I suggest reading the whole chapter of Job 38, whose precise meaning is uncertain. Now, that's the opinion of Wiki. Its context is that of astronomical constellations, and some judge it to mean a specific constellation, while it is often interpreted as a term for the zodiac or constellations thereof. A similar word, Mazzaroth, in 2 Kings 23, 3 through 5, may be related. According to 10th century biblical exegete Saadia Da'an, it literally means constellations, while others interpret the word as naming various concrete astronomical bodies like Saturn, the 7 planets, the Hyades, the northern and southern crowns, the southern ship Argo, or Sirius. The word itself is hapax legomenon, i.e., a word appearing only once in the text of the Hebrew Bible. In Yiddish, the term Mazzaroth came to be used in the sense of astrology in general, surviving in the expression Mazel Tov, meaning good fortune. Biblical context. The appearance of the word in Job 38:31 appears in the context of various astronomical phenomena. Can you tie the chords to Pleiades or undo the reins of Orion? Can you lead out Mazzaroth in its season? Conduct the bear with her sons? The word Mazzaroth in Second Kings may have a different meaning and is often translated differently, with the linkage of this word to the classical planets or the zodiac being more widely held in Kabbalistic astrology. Mazalot was also used for astrology in general. The word may be related to Assyrian Manzalatu, meaning the lunar station. The king stood by the pillar and solemnized it, the covenant before God, that they would follow God and observe God's commandments, injunctions, and laws with all their heart and soul, and that they would fulfill all the terms of this covenant and inscribe upon the scroll. And all the people entered into the covenant. Then the king ordered the high priest Hilkiah, the priests of the second rank, and the guards of the threshold to bring out the temple of God, all the objects made for Baal and Asherah, and all the host of heaven. He burned them outside Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron, and he removed the ashes to Bethel. He suppressed the idolatrous priests whom the king of Judah had appointed to make offerings at the shrines in the towns of Judah and in the environs of Jerusalem, and those who made offerings to Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the constellations, and all the host of heaven. Okay, so what had happened in antiquity is the same thing with the Hebrews as the rest of society around the globe. This, in the ancient times, there wasn't the worship of the heavens or the Mazzaroth as gods or goddesses. They did not worship these things in that way. It was a grand story laid out, and there was precision in the heavens, and it was calculable. You could calculate the order or the precession of the equinox. You could calculate the movement of the planets. You could calculate the movement of the sun and the moon through all of these houses. And that was the work of the priests of all of these original religious orders. They were all there in order to do their calculations of these movements. Now, in order for you to understand the ancient times and how this all worked, you have to understand that there were different orders of priests. And this is imperative to understand how all of the corruption happens. There were entire priestly lines dedicated strictly to understanding the movements of the moon. There was entire priestly lines who all of their studies were in the order of the sun. And these were the solar priests, and you also had the lunar priests, and then there was an entire body of priests who were the stellar priests. And This is where we get the order of the wise men who were trained in the watching of the stars and the movement of these stars into the what we call the greater year or the precession of the equinoxes. And this is where the Mayan calendar comes in and the ancient um, Hebrew calculations, because they're the only two systems that are precise. And this is all provable. Everybody agrees that the Mayans had the most precise calculations, but they don't bring up that the ancient Hebrews also had that exact same precision of the year and the great year. And it was lost to the ancient Hebrews when they went into captivity in Babylon. And a lot of the modern Christian world has been drawn into the Babylonian system of the lunar houses and using a either strictly lunar calendar or a luni-solar calendar. And they've lost this part, which is what we know is called the Mazzaroth. And they have lost their connection to this original calendar of the Mazzaroth. And again, I have decoded this star language um, on this mosaic from Israel. And if you look over here at the constellation of Aries, there is no gate or band like you see here between Libra and Virgo. And then you see over here between Taurus and Gemini, and you see here between Pisces, you see these connections between Scorpius and the white horse rider, Sagittarius. You see these connected bands. These are the divisions of the gates, and the gates are your connection to your year. And this is vital information to understand how all these gates work. Again, I have already decoded this language, and I can using the Mazzaroth, I can decode literally thousands of different images from all over the planet. Uh, I I can decode virtually every Gobekli Tepe image that's shown using the Mazzaroth. I can decode stuff from Mexico, from there's things that have been found here in the Americas, uh, and they all have this same type of language, but it comes from the ancient times before all of the what we would call zodiacal corruptions of astrology and what all of the fallen angels taught to the uh, creation of the Adamo, or what the Bible calls Adam. And so that corruption came in at that time, and that can be shown also within um, these breakdowns, but that's going to have to come for another time. It's easily shown here. I can break all of these things down, and it's easily shown here that the head of the year is between Virgo and Libra. And this binding chain here connected to the circles is the ancient beginning. And there are very specific things within this symbol, these symbols that prove that, because this Virgo image contains very specific things that align with the Dendera zodiac. And as I've said before, there's only two stars on the entire Dendera zodiac that are basically they stand out. They are actually turned into their own images within the Dendera zodiac. There's other minor stars that make up some of the constellations, but there's not specific stars that are brought out to light other than the stars Sirius and Spica. And we know that in our time now, this is where they get the new year, is that uh, the star Sirius has its highest point in the night sky at midnight between December 31st and January 1st. So this is where they get their new year, is in the celebration of the star Sirius. Many of you may not understand that or know that, but it's that our modern New Year is essentially a worship of the star Sirius and all the things that they do. If you really understand how to connect the dots, is associated with the worship of the star Sirius. And then you have the Hebrew New Year, and that is what we would call Lunar New Year based on the Hebrew calendar. So, what we're going to do right now, again, I'm going to connect this link so you can go do your homework. We're going to go here. Actually, we're going to go here first. Uh, we're going to build some evidence on how these other calendars work, and we're also going to be building evidence for the ancient understandings that were lost. So, here we're going to talk about this really quick: constellations and the Jewish calendar. Forgive me if I have some sniffles. My lungs are doing great and I'm feeling great, but I still have some sinus stuff going on. The Jewish calendar is deeply connected to the constellations. While each month corresponds to a zodiac sign, for instance, the month of Nisan corresponds to Aries, which is depicted as a sheep or a ram. This connection is significant in Jewish tradition as it relates to the holiday of Pesach, which is associated with the sacrifice of the sheep and mention of the ram-headed deity Ra in the Torah. The astrological significance of Aries is also reflected in the fire element of the Exodus narrative, which is linked to the sacrificial altar for the Korban Pesach and the pillar of fire that led the Israelites out of Egypt. Okay, we'll connect those dots. We're going to go here, and we're going to be proving out how this modern Jewish Hebrew calendar is has been corrupted, and we're going to prove it using the sun, moon, and stars. So we just read that in the ancient times, the Jewish New Year of Nisan was connected with the constellation of Aries. So let's go to Stellarium. Um, I've got this pulled up, but we're going to go ahead and go to Aries. And I want you to notice the meridian here. This is going to be very important when we're determining where our years start and how they line up with these constellations. And then we can go back here, and I want you to notice that this line that goes across through this Mazzaroth between Virgo and Aries is cutting the Mazzaroth in half. We have Aries on this side, and we have Virgo on this side, and this line going through is the division of the Mazzaroth. So let's go back over here and show you how that works with the meridian. So we have this line, this green line is our meridian, this red line is our ecliptic. And we can easily, let's do this for ease. We can easily take this green line and go right over to the opposite side. And we can see how that lines up right here with the sign that I was showing. So now we're going to click right into Virgo, and we're going to see how this line that was lined up, this is the ecliptic. Um, we're looking at the ecliptic line with the sun on meridian directly lined up with the constellation of Aries. And if you read with me in that section, it says that the ancient year was in the Hebrews was associated with Aries. So at the Exodus time, that's when they determined the spring month of Nisan, and they changed the calendrical system to begin in Aries instead of Virgo. Now, this is important because the Mazzaroth story begins with the constellation of Virgo, and it ends with the constellation of Leo. And every single person that began studying and disclosing, there's literally hundreds of books now. But you can go and do your research on all the great studies that have been done on the Mazzaroth, and every single one of them that I read in my research all begin the Mazzaroth story with the constellation Virgo, and it ends with the constellation Leo. And so what I'm showing you here is that in order for us to rectify our calendrical system, it has to align with Aries and Virgo. And if you've been following me for a while, then you know how important star Spica is. As we've said, there's only two stars that are shown on the Dendera, and it's Spica, which they are associating Spica with Sirius, and that they are new. Basically, they're showing you that these are New Year stars. And as I've told you many, many times, and I've proven to you in if you've been with me for a while, then you know Spica is a harvest star. It's also the birthing line in the constellation. The the sun and the moon and the wandering planets, the asteroids, the comets, they come through here. If you are familiar with the Revelation 12 sign, that was also assigned to us of the planet Jupiter in the womb of Virgo, and that Jupiter crossed the line of Spica, the birthing line, the line of the womb star Spica on September the 9th. And then on September the 23rd, 24th, the moon went under the feet of Virgo, entering the Libra constellation, which is the altar. So this language uh, has to be understood in order for you to rectify your years. And unfortunately, the Babylonians did not use these systems. They were focused on the lunar system, and that lunar system got passed down to the Hebrews that had been taken into the land of the Babylonians, and they became priests of the Babylonian system. And many of the things that were known in the ancient times were lost, and they stopped pegging their calendrical system to the constellation of Aries, and we're going to show you how that works right now. So here we have the Jewish Nisan of 2026 is on the 18th of March. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Stellarium. We're going to peg ourselves to the sun. And we're going to go to March 18th. So here we are on Meridian. We'll get ourselves on Meridian. And we see March 18th, the sun and the moon is in transition right there. And so the moon, let's go ahead and look at the moon, actually makes it, all you do is you look, see that western sign right there. So right about here is the alignment of the sun and the moon on the ecliptic. And they're not even following their actual orders, because if we see this alignment, it's happening at 1925 which is during the actual 18th. And so normally the Jews with their calendrical system, we're going to connect that also with this Hebrew calendar. This is another addition to the study. These were I just had too many windows pulled up on the last one, so we're going to connect these ones to your research. But if you go here and you look at the actual time of alignment with the western horizon here, sun lining up with the moon at 1925, and that's going to be an approximate there. Then we have, typically they would begin their new year at sunset that evening. It's already at, I believe that's already right at sunset. So we would have to pull that up, but I'm not going to do that for this study. I'm just showing you a couple proofs. Number one, they're essentially one day off because the moon did not come into relation with the sun until 1925. Number two, this is the constellation of Pisces, not the constellation of Aries. And so you have to go all the way to here. Let's go ahead and pull this up. Sorry. You can see that the sun on the 18th is just beginning to enter into the constellation. Let's pull it back slightly. You can see that constellation line, and it's just beginning to enter. So 419 is the day, the first day on in our modern time during 2026. Now again, this moves through the heavens and changes the times, and that's where the problem comes in with all of these other calendars, is they're not aligning with what we call the great year or the precession of the equinoxes. Here on 418, which would be entry 419 into Aries. This now makes us aware of the sun in the constellation. And then we have, if we're tracking it from this specific year, then we know we don't have the moon alignment. Where did the moon go? So let's go all the way back and let's look at our moon alignment here. So here's our moon. Let's just go ahead and track the moon for this purpose. And we can see in this year that you do not have the moon or the faithful witness is not happening in the constellation of Aries. And that's going to become part of our proof that there's only a very specific way to do this type of star mapping, because we have the new moon happening before the sun enters Aries. It's obviously aligning here with the northern fish, which means it's in the house of Pisces. And this lunar alignment is in Pisces, not Aries. Okay, so that's part of our establishment of that their calendar is off, and we can just see that here, that the Jewish Nisan, and we can see how it's connected. It begins at sundown on the 18th and ends at nightfall on the 19th. So actually they do have it on at sunset on the 18th. So they are aligning with what I just showed you. I was off. So they are pegging it for the 19th. But again, let's look at the sun. Let's go back to the 18th, and we can see the alignment here. This is in Pisces. So it's an entire month off from the actual place where the new year should start if you're calculating from Aries. And that is the problem, is that they've lost the star mapping. They're focusing specifically on the lunar solar alignment now. They've lost the connection to the ancient times of the constellations or the Mazzaroth. And I'm showing you right here that it does not align with what we read. So this is the new year. We where is that? This shows that the ancient calendar, this is not the new calendar, because we know that the Jewish calendar is now just a lunisolar. But we're seeing right here, you can pull it up for yourself. Each month corresponds to a zodiac sign. For instance, the month of Nisan corresponds to Aries. And you can also, that is also the beginning of the zodiac for astrology. So I'll connect this and you can pull it up for yourself. These, let's, I already have that pulled up, so I'm going to connect that for you, and you'll be able to do all of the detailed research and go into this and prove these things out for yourself. So we can see here sun moon alignment in Pisces, not where they used to peg it, which would be in the beginning of the constellation of Aries. Now, what that means is that the sun needs to be right here in this corner area to begin the year, not here under the feet or in the back section. That does not function. And I've seen other people go, oh, here's the new year because of a lunar alignment. But that's, again, that's corruption. And I'm going to be proving that out also. In order for this alignment to work, it has to begin right at the very beginning within 2 days. In order for this to work, it has to be within the 19th to 20th, and up to the 21st. Otherwise, this does not work, family. And I'll prove it out using the sun, moon, and stars. So, as we know, in the ancient times, it began with Virgo. The constellation of Virgo was the beginning of the year, and it was associated with the star Spica. And that I've proven out in this channel also with my old channel. I did a lot of work on the Dendera zodiac. So if you haven't visited my old channel, it's called Kadash Culture. It's CHADASH _culture. And I checked, and the channel's still up, but I lost access to that channel, I think 3 years ago now. And I don't know why. I don't know if it was because I got too many strikes. Because I got a lot of strikes on that channel. I don't think they really like this work. Um, but um, I've been doing good with this channel. I haven't gotten a whole lot of strikes. And the ones I have got, I've rectified quickly so that I don't, have any problems and I can continue doing the work. But I'm not monetized. If any of you have any questions about that, I'm not monetized by YouTube. I don't receive any benefits from YouTube whatsoever. I'm doing this work as a labor of love, and trust me, there has been a lot of arrows involved with doing this work. They come from every direction and from every tribe, tongue, and nation. And you wouldn't even believe some of the stuff I have to um, delete from the comment section. So, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to show you how this alignment with Spica and the constellation of Aries works. So let's do this quickly. I just want to make sure that we have this is functional, and you'll be able to see how this works. So, in my long time of trying to decode the language of the Book of Jubilees and the language that's within the Book of Enoch, and me beginning to read through the Dead Sea Scrolls and trying to understand calendrical time from the ancient Hebrew perspective. I did study all of the other calendars of time from the entire area, including the calendars of the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Sumerians. I looked at the Zoroastrian tracking of time. I looked at the how the Indian people track time, the Chinese. I had to go deep to prove out exactly what I was looking at in the heavens, and I didn't want to miss any of the mythology that was established, because these mythologies are actually uh, encoded star language. A lot of people say, "Oh, mythology is satanic, this and that." But if you go back to these ancient connected dots, all of the stories are the same. All cultures around the entire globe, once you know how to decode the Mazzaroth, they are all speaking of the exact same thing. Bar none, all cultures are breaking down this star language into um, their own cultural experience. But once you know the star language, they're all the same. And so it's easy for somebody who has this research done to connect the dots. And that's why Spica is so important to everything that we're doing, because it is the most important star in the Virgo constellation, and the Mazzaroth, hands down, begins with Virgo, not with Aries or any other constellation. The as- astrology starts pegs its stellar year to Aries. But the ancient Mazzaroth, it does not do that. It pegs it to Virgo. Virgo is the beginning and Leo is the end. And this directly aligns with our marriage story. And that's why this is so important to me, because I was given the work of decoding the heavenly wedding and the marriage signs and the bridal signs. And I did deep, deep, deep research into the ancient Hebrew wedding, even going back before they were ever even called Hebrews, going to the time of Abraham and their customs of marriage, going back to where all of those things began, looking at all the marriage customs of the culture from the ancient Levant area, and you come to a very specific conclusion that these heavenly signs are actually a grand marriage story. And it's easy to understand it from that language if you are truly looking at the signs. As we have, Virgo is shown as a maiden or a bride, and she's basically standing on the altar. And we have this hoopah of Ophiuchus, which is a marriage chamber, and then they cross the threshold, which is the Milky Way, and they enter into the Father's house, which is Sagittarius. And within this Sagittarius constellation is the great wedding banquet. And then you enter into the new temple of the sun. The sun is the sacrifice and the resurrection. Capricorn is a perfect symbol of Christ, the sacrifice and the resurrection. And this is his new temple in the backyard of his Father. And this tabernacle is the house of the Father. Sagittarius is also a representation of the white horse rider, right beneath the shield and the eagle. And on the opposite side of the gate is the man who wrestles the serpent, and he's standing on the scorpion. These are connected signs. Scorpius and Ophiuchus and serpents are actually a connected sign. Many of um, our modern people are separating Ophiuchus, making this the 13th zodiac, but these are actually connected, and they tell a story together. And it's also the wedding. The wedding is part two here of Ophiuchus, his body looking like the marriage huppah. And this is the marriage altar of Libra. So you have the altar where the vows are made, the marriage for the people happens here in the huppah, but they have to cross across the threshold into the Father's house before the true supper and ceremony happens. And then again, they enter into the new temple of Capricorn, the temple of the sun. So this is all a marriage story. These signs from Virgo through Capricorn are all the most important signs of the marriage supper and the great wedding in heaven. And we've been showing all those signs, how everything is aligning right now in Sagittarius. But what we're doing now is we're establishing how this calendrical system works. And if you go across the Mazzaroth and you look at the opposite side of, we can see here, you have Spica here on Meridian. And if you follow the Meridian line, it crosses the line in Pisces. So it's not, you can't align it with Spica because it does not align with Aries. It aligns with Pisces. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bring Spica back up, and then we're going to go to 2025. And we're going to go to 10. Forgive me, fam. Sometimes my mouse pad is really sensitive. And we're going to go to this sign here. And we're looking at the constellation of Virgo. We're looking at 1021 at 4:57 a.m. We have, let's go ahead and pull up Meridian. And then we're going to do our homework and we're going to be looking at the opposite side. And forgive me, fam. Sometimes it's difficult doing it from doing it this way. I'm just going to go ahead and pull up. And scroll in. And we can see right here that this is aligned with the entrance of the Aries constellation. And again, many of you know that their lines of these constellations aren't absolutely exact, but we can see it aligning just outside of Omicron. What is this Omicron Piscium? It's on the opposite side. And from what I understand, if you look at this star right here, this is the last star. And all we have to do is go 1 minute, and then it's crossed the line. And so what we're going to go back to is Virgo. And then we're going to be bringing this, and you can see how the moon is passed. The line is essentially right there at the sun, and we have 1021. So this is marking our date of the ancient new year here. And this is how we get our Mazzaroth calendar. And then what we're going to do is we're going to show you quickly how our faithful witness works. If you're not familiar with the Metonic cycle, let's go ahead and pull that up, and we're just going to add that as another link. And this is a very important part of the system also. And this is how we track our moon calendar. And it becomes very important when we are doing Mazzaroth work because the moon is the faithful witness. It's not how you track years. It is very specific with the Mazzaroth, and it's called the Metonic cycle. And this Metonic cycle is a 19-year period of lunar phases, and we're going to show you here. We have the sun and the moon, and we're on 2025. So let's go back 19 years. All right. So here we are. We're now again at the sun, and the moon is it's always going to be slightly off on time, but it'll happen on the same day. 19 years is our time of the faithful witness. She's going to be right back with the sun on the same day in the same spot of the Mazzaroth. And here we see the moon is right there on the same day. It's happening before the end of the midnight day. It's the same day because the sun in the ancient times they only counted the actual uh, daylight hours as the actual day. Even though they started the day at sunset, the evening time was the final period of watching the moon and the stars for that next day that began at sunrise. And that's also another one of the lost parts of watching this is the work of the wise men, and they knew exactly how these calendrical systems worked. And you have before sunrise on the 22nd, you have this alignment. And so at sunset on the 21st, you would have your I'm sorry, at sunset on on the 21st, you would have your year beginning. And last year and the year before, I did my work making my alignment with Aries, and you can go pull that up in older videos. And that's how I established that at sunset on January the 11th, that was our alignment with Mazzaroth Hanukkah. Well, then I had this sign this year, and it made a perfect alignment with the Aries constellation. And we have all these signs aligning right here on 10/22, um, 2006, and we go forward to 2026 and sorry, 2025, and we can see our sign here again on the same day. And that's how the Metonic cycle works. A 19-year period of the faithful witness coming back to the same spot on the ecliptic lined up with the sun. This is the sun and the moon working together on wheels. And the moon is on a 19-year wheel. You can see this with the Mayan calendar. They have a moon track, they have a solar track, they have a great year track. I think they have like over 10 calendars. They have a calendar for Sirius. They have all of these different calendars, and they built these great wheels, and they all fit within each other, and it's a grand clock that is operating together, not separately. The problem lies with the connection of these different um, priestly classes who were focused on different parts of these calendrical systems. Some of them had, as I said, they became solar priests, some were lunar priests, and some belonged to star cults like Sirius. Some of them were star cults of Spica. They literally turned these cultic, and they started worshiping and making figures to these stars. A lot of people don't know that um, the Statue of Liberty is Virgo, and there is ancient depictions of Virgo holding flames, that this wasn't always depicted as agriculture, that that Virgo was holding the flames, the light, and this was another depiction of the new year, that she was the beginning, the light, the spirit, the feminine aspect. You can say lots of different things. We even have Venus right here at this point, just about to pass the Parimas star, which is entering in the womb. So this is a womb sign, and it aligns with our calendrical system of balancing Virgo and Aries. And if we're going to do this work correctly, then we have to look at the houses of the Mazzaroth, not just tracking the sun and the moon, because then we'll become lost in our system of tracking time. And we're going to come back in the next part, and we're going to show within the books of Jubilees and in the book of Enoch, how that is determined, and that way we can rectify what I'm showing you here. But this is using the houses in the Mazzaroth to prove out the matter, and this metonic cycle um, of the moon is a 19-year cycle of lunar phases. And because I'm already over an hour, fam, I'm just blown away. But I'm going to connect these new I have some of these studies. I was going to get into Johannes Kepler and all of these things, but I'm already at an hour. Um, I'm going to cut this off, and that way it's not too much longer than an hour. Keep these studies a little bit shorter. Again, we'll just make as many parts as we have to get to all of these things. But I'm going to connect all of these other links, the Mazzaroth, the Metonic cycle, the Jewish New Year, and the Hebrew constellations of the ancient times. And then we'll come back in the next part. We're going to talk about orbital dynamics, the orbital mechanics, and then Johannes Kepler and Hipparchus and geocentric versus heliocentric tracking. We need to get through all of these things, but this will give you a great place to start with the Mazzaroth and the Metonic cycle. All these are things that if you come back and you do this research, you'll have a deep, deep, deep understanding of how all of these things are tied in together. And this is all research I've been doing over 30 years. And it takes all of these pieces to be able to connect the dots. Because if you just come and study the lunar system, you're only going to understand 1/3 of what the calendar needs in order to be complete. And there's no slight on anybody who's using a lunar calendar. You're free to do whatever you want. I'm just proving out why I do what I do, and I feel that it's a great blessing, and all I'm doing is sharing that blessing with the rest of the body. Your choice is your choice. Just um, don't come into my channel and try to post your lunar counts or your lunar calendars or information about your lunar cycles. Um, Honestly, I just think that's lunatic. So you can just save it. So here I'm going to connect these other dots, and then we're going to come back and we'll get to part 3 of breaking down how all of these orbital systems work, because that's very important on understanding the rest of the dots connected with the Mazzaroth. We're going to connect these links, allow you to come and read more about the Mazzaroth Metonic cycle and the calendars of the Hebrews and the ancient time connection to Aries. And then we'll come back in the next one and we'll dig deep into these orbital mechanics. So thanks for coming, fam. One step at a time, we're going to make it through this, and you're going to have a deep grasp of how the heavens work. Much love.